This is Kevin Conroy, and I am the goddamn Batman.
Welcome to The Pullbag. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with a rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pullbag.
Hello and welcome to The Pullbag. This is episode 401. That's right, 401 episodes, folks, in 8 years. I'm, of course, TFG and Mike. Today's guest is, he's pretty dreadful. That's right. The host of Dread Media over on earth-2.net. That's earth-2.net. It is Mr. Desmond Reddick. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, great. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is kind of weird. I've only ever heard you on podcasts before. But we are here to talk about Dez's comic origins and to figure out how he got into or out of reading comics, because sometimes people end up getting out of comics. It's usually around the time they find girls when they're in their teens and stuff. But who knows?
Not for me.
Oh, there you go. Oh boy. So yeah, we had our big 400th episode, which no idea what I did for that, because honestly, breaking the fourth wall here, folks, I haven't even recorded that one yet. But, yes, big 400 episodes, and we've got a whole bunch of other stuff coming up this month and this year for the Pullbag. Getting into the questions. Did you grow up reading comics, and at what age did you first remember reading or noticing comics?
Wow. Yeah, I did grow up reading comics. I was 4 when I first really remember having comic books in my hand. And yeah, so like basically I learned to read from comic books. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, my mom worked at Safeway. She would occasionally come home with a comic book for me. And then, you know, because it was back in the day when you didn't have to worry so much about, you didn't have to worry so much about looking like a good parent. I would go to the grocery store and sit down right beside the spinner rack and read as much as possible. And that created a bit of a complex, I mean, at some points I can't really remember what I did yesterday or what time my appointment is tomorrow, but I can remember reading a comic and it confuses me. I'm like, do I actually own that comic, or did I just read it when I was a child? So I actually read a lot of Defenders, but I think I only ever owned like 4 or 5 Defenders comic books.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Yeah, it's like you can remember everything from every single movie, TV show, cartoon, or comic, but yet you can't remember that you had rhubarb for whatever 5 minutes ago.
Right. Well, yeah. I would remember rhubarb, but yeah.
You wouldn't, right?
But yeah, you're basically summing up something that my girlfriend says to me every other week. So
as a kid, now I know some of these questions kind of roll into each other. As a kid, was there a parent, a friend who just said, "Here, kid, read this comic, go away, you bother me"? Who was it? Was it your mom that got you into the whole reading of comics, or was there another specific person in your life that did that?
No, my sort of comic book experience is pretty solitary. I don't think I really had a friend who read comics until I was like 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. My mom would buy me comics occasionally, simply, or, I would sit there and read as many comics as possible in the hour it took for her to shop. And then she would buy me one, right? So I'd, grab the one that was the best or grab the one that looked cool that I didn't read yet. So it wasn't like she was, foisting her own fandom on me. She's never read a comic in her life. And my dad stopped reading comics when he was, I don't know, 8 or 9. And, started playing baseball and whatever. And yeah, so it was basically just me. And I got my original culture from those spinner racks or those magazine racks in grocery stores and convenience stores. And I don't think I even went to a comic book shop until I was about 11 or 12.
Oh, wow.
I mean, maybe they didn't really even exist in my part of the world at that time either, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember. Like, comic book shops for me are like the late 90s, early 2000s, and by that time I was just out of high school going into 2-year college that didn't really work out. But anyway, yeah, I'm dumb, folks. It's one of those things where it's like, 2 years ago I just found out I was born without a piece of my brain. So, it's kind of, anyway.
That's something to do with it.
Yeah, must be. When you were a kid, which characters were your favorites?
When I was really little, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman. I mean, those are the basics, but also like I loved Suicide Squad, that John Ostrander original run at DC Comics. Suicide Squad was just awesome. Alpha Flight I loved as a Canadian kid. I thought it was so cool that we had our own superhero team, because I didn't really see much of Canada in pop culture back then. I guess you still don't really. I mean, now most of the movies and TV are filmed in Canada, but right. It says it's the United States. But yeah, so I loved Alpha Flight and X-Men. I was a major X-Men Teen Titans kid. I probably lean more towards the DC stuff. I just like the more, I don't know, bigger, more epic scale kind of stuff. And, Jack Kirby's stuff, very early comics for me was, do you know what Superpowers is?
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, so Superpowers was like a line of DC Comics toys that were that were very cool. Like, coming from a kid who played with G.I. Joes, these DC Comics toys, like, they were bigger, they had muscles. And,
yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, and they also, and actually, so those, that was around the first time that Jack Kirby was really getting big time money from comics, because the villains of the Superpowers were, Darkseid and Desaad and like all of his Apocalypse guys from the Fourth World. And so I became a Jack Kirby fan very early on, because I just loved the character designs on those villains. And they were essentially the villains of that run of comic books. The comic books aren't great, but looking back on it, but I still got them collected in hardcover. So
there you go. Very cool. All right. So since you already kind of answered this one, but we have to ask that age old question: DC or Marvel?
I love some Marvel stuff, but I think overall I would say DC. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just a cooler sandbox to me. Like, if I was to write in one of those fields, I would choose DC, and that's kind of how I would pick that. I mean, I was a kid, I had all these G.I. Joe characters and different sort of action figures and stuff, and I'd assign a superhero role to one of my G.I. Joes, and I'd have like, massive Crisis on Infinite Earths on my bed, and I'd pull up the comforter parts to be like mountains or whatever. Like, I was fully all about it. And I was writing that stuff in my head. I mean, the real answer is both, because, I had Wolverine attacking Darkseid and shit. It's just, it's that kind of stuff. But if I had to choose one, it would be DC for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I say this in every Origins episodes. We've been doing these things for 8 years now, folks. I don't have a particular loyalty to either or. I see each of them having their own successes and failures, and I go with the characters. So I am a huge, and yes, folks, I know this is going to be ironic for me to say this, I'm a huge Dick fan. I am a huge Dick Grayson fan, and thank God Dan DiDio does not work for DC anymore, because he always kills him off, bastard. But like Nightwing or Iron Man, or that kind of thing. For me, it's all about the character.
Yeah. Hey man, I'll agree with you there. I mean, in my opinion, Dick Grayson is the best comic book character ever. Just the best. He's the first to be integrated into an existing world that, he changed. I loved him. I was reading Dick Grayson. I mean, I was reading like old reprint issues of Batman and stuff. So I saw 50s and 60s Robin, but like I mentioned earlier, I was a major Teen Titans fan, and he was still Robin when I was reading Teen Titans, but then he quit and became a private investigator, just Dick Grayson. And then shortly after that, he became Nightwing. So I sort of followed that, and I kind of love that. I kind of, you have a character that's grown, whereas Superman and Batman have been, 34 years old for 80 years or whatever. You got a character that's grown and changed and had different jobs. He's been like a super spy and stuff. So absolutely. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, Batman, Superman, they ain't got nothing on Nightwing. At least Nightwing doesn't have a safe word.
Yeah.
Why did you say that name? What other publishers do you enjoy reading?
I think regularly, probably, Dark Horse, Image. Back in the day before it was owned by DC, the Wildstorm imprint, which I guess was Image at the time. I've loved some comics from Avatar Press, Dynamite, Harris. Going back a little ways, I was never into like the bad girl comics, but right. I really did like Vampirella, because Vampirella was a bad girl comic that actually had good stories. And I liked those from Harris Comics. And I don't know. I guess that's it.
Print or digital? Which one? Both, either or, and why?
Oh. Yeah. Which one? The easy answer is both, but really that's only, look, if I was only, well, I mean, obviously, if I was only reading stuff that I wanted to keep, it would be print.
Print, right.
But I do keep up on some monthly comics in digital, but it's more like check out the first issue or the second issue. And if I like it a lot, I'll probably stop getting it monthly and just make a mental note to grab the trade when it comes out. And I have I'm so like neurotic and anxiety ridden that I have like several levels. Like it'll be, oh shit, sorry, can I swear? I didn't ask that. Can. Okay, all right.
Don't worry.
I know it's the internet, but also some people, don't want it to happen. But
my rule is I do not make podcasts for children. So if your kids know that you swear already and they don't care, go ahead and have them listen to it. I make podcasts for people like us.
All right.
And
sounds
if we
good.
Need to say shit, fuck, damn, whatever. I don't care.
All right. Well, so, sometimes I'll be like, well, shit, this is really great. I'm buying this in hardcover. Or, I'll wait an extra 2 months and buy it in trade paperback. Or, I've read 2 issues of this and this sucks. So I'm not going to follow this anymore. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. So the real answer is both, but the hard answer is print. I love sitting down, and just holding a book in my hand. I'm the same with, books without pictures, even though I do read digital. I mean, that's part of the thing of the changing times, right? Like they used to, back when Dread Media started, they'd reach out and be like, hey, do you want to review this novel? And I'd be like, sure. And they'd mail me a copy, and that's great. But
right.
That now it's
just email you a PDF.
Yeah. So I mean, to change with the times, I had to at first I was like, I'm never getting an e-reader. Ugh. And then I kind of had to. I mean, I had an iPad, so I downloaded the Kindle app, and I take that when I go away for the weekend or something. So I have, 50 books available to me.
Yeah.
That I can choose from. Yeah.
Yeah. I say this every episode, so people should know that listen to this show know that I repeat myself. I started out in print, And then once I eventually hit Comixology and went digital and I saw their guided view, I'm like, I can never read comics again because I would rather read storyboarded. You know, they're going to take my eye where it needs to go. They're going to pull me into the story with their guided view on Comixology.com. And I'm like, print? What's that? I respect it. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. I'm so happy that the comics industry is not completely dead yet because there was questionable times last year. Let's just say
it's still questionable.
Well, yes, no, I understand that it's always going to be questionable. But last year, everybody was putting out things. Oh my God, the comics industry is dead. Oh my God, this. Oh my God, and I'm like, come on.
Well,
really?
Speaking as a longtime comic book fan, they have been saying that since the 90s. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hell, part of the 90s was probably why it should have died at the time. But luckily, you know, we survived it. Who are some of your favorite comics writers and why?
Comics writers?
Yes.
Okay, well, speaking of some of those, I'm going to start picking some people here that would not be the typical people to pick. just to get some people some shouts out. Speaking of monthly books that I am reading, Punisher. Matthew Rosenberg is, to me, in my opinion, writing the definitive Punisher. Sorry, let me finish that. The definitive Punisher inside the Marvel Universe. I mean, I think everybody would say, come on, Garth Ennis, that Punisher Max run was about as core Punisher as you could get. And I agree with that. But if we're talking about Punisher as an existing character inside of the Marvel Universe, nobody has written him as good as Matthew Rosenberg has, as well as Matthew Rosenberg has. Hello, English teacher here. So I'm really digging his run. Man, other writers, like current writers?
Any writer, doesn't, you know, whatever. Who are just some of your favorites that you've loved to read?
Ed Brubaker. I loved his work on Daredevil. I love most of what he does, creator-owned stuff, Fatale. He had a great series. No one ever talks about Sleeper. That's a Brubaker series. Do you know what Sleeper is?
I don't think so.
Sleeper is like a super spy story told within the Wildstorm universe, but it's like adult, right? Like it's, I don't know what they call it. Was Eye of the Storm, I think they called it, like the adult version of the Wildstorm comic books. And it's just great. He's a undercover, superpowered guy who's working with super terrorists to take them down from within. And it's just fantastic. I love that book. So yeah, Brubaker. I don't know, Jack Kirby. he wrote too. Clearly an artist. Same with Eric Larson. I'm going to say both of those guys. I'm assuming the next question is artist. But I'll talk about them probably in art because I think I like their art better than their writing. But I'm just sort of swiveling my head to look at my bookshelves here.
You mean you don't have spinner racks in your house? Come on.
Well, Marv Wolfman, of course, Len Wein. Yeah, these guys are like the architects of my childhood. I mentioned John Ostrander, writer and plotter of Suicide Squad and many other stuff. And yeah, Mark Grunwald's Captain America run in the 90s. Holy shit. Talk about, I don't know how many issues he did. Did he like 60 issues or something? And it's just fun. It's super fun. You know, Serpent Society and Red Skull and just a bunch of classic Captain America villains that he's fighting and super fun. So yeah, no one mentions Mark Grunwald's Captain America run. It's definitely like top 5 comic book superhero runs for me.
I think it's the first time I've ever heard his name, and I'm going to have to go check him out after this.
Yeah. You know what? That's what I love about these Marvel's doing these epic collections. And because, you know, like I have a bunch of essential editions, but they're nowhere near the 90s in the essential editions, and they're not making them anymore. So they have these full color ones that collect like, you know, about 18 issues at a time. And they've done a bunch of Grunwald's run. So I love that stuff coming up. You know, U.S. Agent you know, the sort of like angrier Captain America that came in. And I just love that stuff. So yeah, go check out Mark Grunwald's Captain America, because it's great.
Awesome. What defines a good story to you?
What defines a good story? That's a question that a writer should be able to answer very well, isn't it? Well, character, for one. Character, conflict. You can take things a really long way by having a character that people empathize or sympathize with. They don't have to be likable. They don't have to be someone you can understand, but finding a nugget of that character that people can understand is important. And then when you put that character in peril, then you're concerned about them. And that's, I think, the basis of good adventure storytelling. Characters and bad shit happening to them. Or them trying to stop bad shit from happening, you know? That's a very simple question, but, you know, I could go further into saying, you know, like, I love reversals and reveals, and, you know, that's just writing, really.
Yeah. And when you have a good writer, it's going to be a good story.
Absolutely. Well, also you should say that the artist has a lot to do with that.
Oh, absolutely, and we're going to get
a lot to do with that. I've read some comic books by some great writers that. Oh, and I'm not going to name it because I don't want to blame any artists, but it just doesn't. I've also read some comics by some great writers that the writing sucks and the art is great. Yeah. And there's a high profile series that came out 2 years ago or so that really pissed me off because they had a great writer and a great story and a great artist, but the entire run of the series was done in like a 9-panel grid.
Ooh.
And I'm like, I get what they're trying to do here, but this artist, I want to see big splash pages and shit. I want to see this guy, you know, work shit out. You know, if I want to read a great comic book with a 9-panel grid, I'll go read Watchmen again, you know?
Yeah. What does a story have to draw you in? So in comic books, you know, most of the time we go to comic shops or we look on websites or whatever and we see the cover and that draws us in. But what does the story have to make you keep coming back for more?
I think it has to be like not a unique idea, but a unique idea inside a certain set of circumstances. Mm-hmm. I'm a big horror fan, so I think a lot of the horror comics I would read, I'm looking for a new approach to something, or maybe an approach to something that I've never seen in comic book form before. And I guess that's the same for like superhero stuff. You know, I just read, what's it called? Event Leviathan. Did you ever hear of that?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing that sort of came and went and didn't get much fanfare. And it was pretty interesting. I really enjoyed, oh God, who wrote that? The Checkmate series from about 10 years ago. I can't remember who wrote it. But it's like, you know, super spies inside of the DC universe. And this is similar to that. But Event Leviathan was written by Bendis, Brian Michael Bendis, who I have complex feelings about. and drawn by Alex Maleev. And it is a great sort of mystery inside the DC universe about some massive terror cell about this character, Leviathan, who is now in control of this terrorist group, Leviathan, and who can be trusted, and a motley gang of detectives, including like, I don't know, like Lois Lane and John Constantine and Plastic Man, like all these different characters are coming together to try and solve this mystery. And I just thought it was really great. Now, the ending kind of sucked, because I think what they were trying to do is set this character up to be something massive inside the DC universe. So there's no real ending.
Yeah.
And that's kind of upsetting because no one took the idea and ran with it, which I wonder if Bendis is upset about that. But I liked everything up until about the last 10 pages, and it was sort of super spy stuff mixed with detective stuff inside this superhero world. And I enjoyed that. And I enjoy that kind of thing where you take a premise. Actually, Justice League Dark is doing that right now. Talk about another monthly comic book I'm reading. They do a really great job of taking these horror tropes and putting these, well, magic themed, some of them horror themed heroes and anti-heroes together, trying to get to the bottom of it. And I really enjoy that. And that's kind of stuff I've always loved. I've always loved mixing of genres.
When searching for Checkmate, again, Comixology.com, sadly they don't pay me. Checkmate by Greg Rucka.
Yeah, Greg Rucka.
2006 to 2008. Yeah, it was him.
That's a very fun run.
Yeah, it was him and Jesus Sayas.
Yeah. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but yeah.
I'm looking right at the name and I still can't pronounce it, but it, hey. But yeah, no, it looks really interesting and really fun.
Yeah, and both of those guys were involved in 52, which was another idea that I adored. I loved the idea of removing all the major characters from a core book and telling a weekly story. Now, I'm sure you are aware as a listener of Earth2.net that Michael Sims and I continued that with, hey, they're doing another weekly series. We should follow along and do one episode a month where we talk about 4 issues of this series. Yep. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea, until we started reading the series, and that was Countdown, and it was awful. Yeah. But 52, I still would say, is probably the best event comic of all time, if you can call it an event comic.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, no, Countdown almost killed you guys. That's as bad as covering the Saw movies. Oh, wait. Who are some of your favorite comics artists?
Yeah, well, okay, so I've mentioned Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby is more than an artist; he's a myth maker. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that the comics industry would be in a very different place had he never chosen to work in it. So yeah, Eric Larson, I also mentioned. His work on Spider-Man made me a huge fan. And then when he left to join Image, I followed him there. And The Savage Dragon is a comic book I have been buying since, I guess, 1992 when it first came out. The first issue of the first miniseries. I've been following it every issue since. I'd say monthly, but he's been not so much monthly. There's been a couple times where it's gone, 3-4 months between issues. But yeah, I mean, and also, like, I'm going to also mention him as a writer because he's doing something that no one else has ever really done. And in Savage Dragon, he's telling a story that's unfolding in real time. So the character of the dragon, spoiler alert, guys, but this is years old by this point, is dead. And the series is following his grown son and his family. It's wild. And I don't know. I find that unique inside. We're in a world where, like I said, Batman's been 34 for 80 years. Spider-Man, they keep trying to go back, right? They keep trying to go back because they feel like they fucked up. I love the idea of Spider-Man getting older. What I don't love is Peter Parker being a corporate, CEO of whatever Parker Industries or whatever the hell they called that.
Yeah.
I feel that gets a bit away from the character. But again, he was a super nerd and clearly a scientific genius. So maybe that has some validity. I just don't like reading Spider-Man as, okay, I would like reading Spider-Man as a CEO if he still had girl troubles,
Which secretary in the pool am I going to date this week? I feel that is a Otto Octavius body swapping moment.
Right.
That's something Otto would do, not Peter.
And also, hey, for a guy who had girl troubles, who's had both Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy and Black Cat after him, he's doing all right.
Yeah, I mean, come on, once you go Black Cat, you never go back.
Never go back, Cat. But yeah, I mean, so what Larson is doing is sort of unprecedented. It sort of happened a little bit, like we mentioned Nightwing and, Spider-Man, but there's always pullback, and there's, because this is the Savage Dragon is a creator-owned series, he can do whatever the hell he wants. So next issue, he could go back and, I don't know, he could do like a whole what if to the very first appearance of the dragon and start from there if he wanted, and I wouldn't put it past him. So it's good. I like being kept on my toes.
He could throw a little Miss Witch Harkness in there, and you never know.
Right, absolutely.
Spoilers. Yeah. That's definitely a spoiler.
But yeah, I mean, John Cassaday, I think is how you pronounce his name. I'm not, or maybe it's just Cassidy, but Planetary is probably my favorite single comic book series of all time, and I think he's just a master artist. And Gene Colan, classic artist that I love. There's some newer guys I also love. Trying to think. Well, Jim, no, he's not. He's dead. Jim Aparo is like my favorite Batman artist of all time. I like some of the European guys, Milo Manara, Mobius, obviously, Enki Bilal. I think I started getting into those guys, sort of seeing snippets of them in Dark Horse Presents back in the day. I was reading Dark Horse Presents when I was probably too young to be doing so. But that's basically the story of my life with movies and books and comic books and music. Yeah, I mean, I like a wide berth of artists. I like, people you'd consider cartoonists more than anything else. Yeah, so I mean, for me, it's just, do I like this style? And if I like the style of art, it takes me a long way.
Do you often, like, when you find an artist's style that you like, does that then make you, this is a completely off the wall and just spontaneous question, follow-up thing, does that make you then follow the artist through the rest to see what else they've done?
Yeah,
so like Aparo did stuff on Batman. Jim Aparo's run on Batman. After you fell in love with that, did you want to see everything else he did?
Yeah, I still would like a really good reprint of his Aquaman run. I have a couple issues of that. It's just not necessarily easy to find. There's not a lot of Aquaman back issues out there. Yeah, no, I will follow an artist as much as I would follow a writer. I think it's more frequent that I'm impressed by an artist than it is when I'm not impressed by an artist.
Right.
I think I do have a wide berth of what I like. And, unfortunately, I think like stuff that I don't like is when we're getting into like manga influenced art. It's just never appealed to me. And when I see that in, a mainstream superhero comic book, I see that influence in the art. I don't like, go on the internet and scream about how it sucks, but I'll look at it and be like, oh, this is not for me. So
that's interesting you say that, because some of those types of questions are coming up actually. Fun note, folks, I never share the 25 questions with people, so I never know what life is like a box of comics. You never know what you're going to get.
Very true. Very true.
Do you have a favorite non-superhero title?
Yeah, a couple like Have you read Planetary?
No, but I'm sure it would count.
Yeah, it counts. It's not. I mean, there are superheroes in it, but it's not a superhero book.
If Batman, Iron Man, Superman, and John Captain America don't show up, that
right.
I mean,
And obviously, I talked about Savage. Excuse me, Savage Dragon. That's not a superhero book per se. It's about a guy who looks like a dragon who's a cop in Chicago, but he, there are points where he does become a superhero in the run of the comic book because, of course, but yeah, I love. Wait, series? You said like non-superhero series?
Non-superhero title, but
okay,
series, yeah,
yeah. I mean, yeah, tons like Hellboy. I wouldn't consider Hellboy a superhero. I like his stuff. The Beasts of Burden. I don't know if you've read that. That's
I haven't, but some other people have suggested it to me.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's Evan Dorkin and Jill Thompson doing talking animals, but it's like they're occult detectives.
Oh, wow.
They're like a bunch of dogs and a cat solving magic and demonic happenings and stuff. That's really cool. That reminds me of We Three, the Grant Morrison series about the three animals put inside of cybernetic war bodies. It's very, very beautiful. It sounds bizarre, and it is, but it's beautiful.
Voiceover is dangerous work.
Maybe I like non-superhero books more than superhero books, even though I do truly love the superhero.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, we all, I don't consider Transformers to be superheroes, and I've loved what IDW has been doing in their previous universe and their current new rebooted universe kind of thing. So it's like, they're giant robots, man. Yes, they do heroic things, but the other side also does really evil things. Yeah, when I think of superheroes, I think of, spandex suits and capes and, that, if you got a mask on that kind of looks like a superhero mask or a bat mask, or sometimes you just need a pair of glasses because nobody will recognize you. My God, have you? And this is, again, spoilers, folks. So I'm going off on a tangent here because I tend to do that. Have you seen the pilot for Superman and Lois?
No, I haven't. I won't
say anything. You just need to.
Okay.
I won't say anything. You just need to.
I'll have to find that somehow. I saw that little snippet where he's wearing the original Superman costume, and the little kid's like, "Hey, nice suit." He's like, "Thanks, my mom made it," and he flies off. And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. I will probably check that out sometime."
Oh, it is by far. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to say any influencing words, but it's so fucking good. It's only one episode. It's 2 hours. It's a 2-hour pilot. It's only had one episode, and it's like everything in it. I was like, yes. Okay, they're doing it this way. Great. This is the way it should be done. Whew, so good.
Cool. And I'm not a guy who's ever been like super into Superman. I have moments like sort of like little slices of times. I came to my the peak of my Superman fandom during Death of Superman, Return of Superman, or Return of the Supermen kind of thing. And then once that was basically over, I sort of preferred my Superman in the Justice League. But what I have seen of that looks cool. I think that guy
Tyler Hoechlin.
Okay, Tyler Hoechlin. Yeah, he cuts a good look as Superman. So yeah, I'll check that out. But you know what? I also like What's His Nuts, and I'm really looking forward to the Snyder Cut.
Oh yeah.
But I can't. Cavill.
Cavill.
You think I'd be able to remember that, but no.
Well, for a second there, I thought you were going to really take me back to the 90s and say you like Dean Cain, but apparently nobody's supposed to say that kind of stuff anymore.
No, you know what? I thought that show sucked. And maybe I was away from superhero comics at the time, but I was not into that series.
Yeah. It's
now, Terry Hatcher, on the other hand. They're real and they're fabulous. That's all I have to say. I love Terry Hatcher. She's great.
She's amazing. And it's so funny how you find things like, okay, I remember watching Lois and Clark. When that show was on air, I was between 13 and 17 over that show's lifespan. And you find other things. And this is before her desperate days. This is way before her desperate days on ABC. I found, and I can't believe I enjoyed this because I'm not one of this guy's biggest fans at all. Brain Smasher, A Love Story. It is Andrew Dice Clay starring with her in this backwards ass movie of think James Bond, but with more cursing.
Wow.
And less gadgets.
I just Googled this. I've never even heard of this movie.
Yeah. I hadn't either until I was looking through her filmography back years and years ago, and I'm like, what is this? I need to see Lois Lane and Andrew fucking Dice Clay in a movie. It's probably not one of the better films, obviously. It's very cheesy. And honestly, I haven't seen it in years. I'd have to go back and watch it again. But it's one of those things where I just remember it.
It's probably no Adventures of Ford Fairlane, but
no.
Yeah.
I think I found it after. Yeah, it was after 97, so it was after she finished it was when she was a Bond girl in Tomorrow Night Dies. That's when I originally found Brain Smasher: A Love Story. All right, what is your favorite run of a series? So this question is basically like you take issue 13 through 25, which is a specific story arc of a Batman series.
Okay.
That's kind of where this question fits. So what would be your favorite run of any comic series? Doesn't have to be superhero, it could be anything.
So this can't be like a complete thing, right? No. Like John Ostrander wrote like all 66 issues or whatever, plus annuals of Suicide Squad. So it wouldn't be a run.
No, just like Margaret Scott wrote a run on Batgirl recently in the last couple of years, like that kind of thing. Like if a writer or an artist come in and they're only there for a specific amount of time, kind of thing.
Well, is it a cop out to say Mark Gruenwald's Captain America?
No.
I mean, it is I'll say a couple. Like Mark Gruenwald's Captain America. Look, guys, if there's one thing to take from this this interview with me, a guy you've probably never heard of before, is you need to check out Mark Gruenwald's Captain America. He wrote Captain America for 10 years, and really it's insanely fun. So like his Captain America is basically issue 307 through 443. So there's one issue he didn't write in there. So he didn't write issue 423. So he wrote issues 307 through 422, and then 424 to 443 annuals.
Yeah, those are runs. Yeah, those
8,
are runs. 10,
11, and 12. So he's missing annual 9 as well. But I love that shit. It's so good. Jim Apparo's run on, I'm not going to say Batman, but I'm going to say Batman and the Outsiders. That's a fun series. Steve Gerber's run on Man-Thing is really fun. Same as, I guess Howard the Duck would be the whole series he wrote. Here's another one. Speaking of Steve Gerber, he wrote a 12-issue mini-series or maxi series, I guess you'd call it, of Fool Killer. I don't know if you know who Fool Killer is.
No, I don't.
It's a weird side murderer character that he introduced in the pages of Swamp Thing back in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Sort of weird, debonair, like Christian fascist style guy who viewed certain people as fools. And if he discovered that you were a fool, he would give you a little card. And then I don't know. I think it was like 24 hours. You have 24 hours to stop being a fool or I'll kill you. And then he'd come back and shoot them with what he called his purifying gun, which is this gun that like turned them into ash. Really weird character. Well, back and in the early mid 90s, Gerber came back and did this really gritty follow-up series called Fool Killer, where I think like the main character was a banker, but it's like just in the fallout of the whole savings and loans disaster.
Right.
And begins looking for purpose, and he finds purpose in killing fools. So, yeah.
There you go. That's one way to be a murderer, I guess.
Yeah, and that's something that Marvel needs to get back into print. They did a whole run of Steve Gerber's Howard the Duck. They're putting out the third, I think, and final volume of Steve Gerber's Man-Thing this year. They need to do Steve Gerber's Fool Killer, because that needs to be back in print, even if it's just the new miniseries. They could include a couple of the appearances that he had before, but who cares? They're a different guy anyway. But
awesome. What is one comic you can read over and over again? Something you always go back to, single issue or trade?
There's a couple.
Okay.
Kingdom Come.
Really?
I love Kingdom Come. I like alternate takes on characters in a lot of aspects, and the sort of I'm a sucker for like the future. Hey, show me this character when he's 20 years older, and what the world is like then. I really like that, and that's what Kingdom Come is all about. Yeah, that's one thing. Something else that I've been telling myself over and over and over to reread is the JLA Avengers crossover. I used to read that very frequently, and yeah, I will definitely reread that again. I think it's about as fun as comics get. And Planetary. I'll say Planetary again, because that is, again, one of the best comic book series that's ever been created, in my opinion.
Very cool, very cool. Are there comics you avoid altogether? Like you just see it and you're like, nope, that's not for me.
Yeah, if it's got like a manga look to it, I drop it immediately. And that's I'm fully aware that that's not fair, but yeah, I like what I like, and I don't like that art style. So that's definitely out of the way. I would, if you'd asked me, I don't know, a little while ago, I would have said, anything that Dan Slott writes. But I'm sort of coming around on him right now. So, but
wow, this podcast made its bones on Dan's. So that's where for me, Spider-Man in the 90s was the cartoon series, the animated series,
right,
on Fox. And then that made me want to go to Walden Books, to go to the spinner racks and find something like what I saw on television and comics.
Right.
And then when I started this podcast 8 years ago, it was like, oh, Superior Spider-Man, that's different. Because again, Peter Parker, they've done everything with him. They've done everything. They all, like you said earlier, they always bring him back to a point where he's 14, 15, 16 in high school, and then they age him up again. They de-age him again. So I'm like, Superior Spider-Man? What's that? Doc Ock is not like... That's how we started with Spider-Man on this show. So I started with Dan Slott, and I got to get back to that stuff.
Are you reading that current Superior Spider-Man series?
I need to.
I'm so behind on comics myself, but like I'm 2-3 issues into that run and really enjoying it. Actually, I don't know if he writes that, but I know he's writing the recent Fantastic Four run. Which I'm enjoying, although it looks like they're teasing that Doctor Doom is going to be marrying Valeria Richards, which even if it's like future Valeria Richards, it seems very weird and gross. But I guess that's one way to get back at your your biggest rival is marrying his daughter. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Also in line with that last question, are there any comics in the past or currently that you wish you hadn't read them?
Oh, do I wish I hadn't read them?
Like, yeah, like you get to the end of it and you're like, wow, I just wasted my time on this thing. I just didn't like it. I just wish I hadn't read it.
Not fervently. I do read an occasional issue, and generally it'll be like the first issue of a series, right? I'm going to give this a shot. Am I going to like it? Maybe I'll buy it and trade, and I'll finish the issue, and either it'll be so forgettable that I couldn't tell you anything that happened in the issue at all, or B, this was so painful that I will never read another issue. But also, you're talking to a guy who read Countdown,
survived.
But so Mike and I covered Countdown monthly. I think we did. Did we? Maybe you don't know, but maybe you do know. Did we quit on the 6th episode or the 7th? I can't remember. I
honestly do not remember. I'd have to go back through the Earth 2 archives and see.
So I think, we covered like the first half of the run and then quit covering it. So I gave the time of reading those issues twice each and then going through them while we're talking about it, and then spending 4 or 5 hours on the phone with Mike talking about that month of issues for 6 months. And then I still bought the rest of the series and continued to read it. Like, I am a glutton for punishment because in my head, it's probably has something to do with my anxiety, but in my head, I'm like, look, you're already in. You're in for 26 issues. You have to see how this ends. And it doesn't end impressively in any way, but I needed to see it through at that point, which is why I'll read something that's bad as an issue 1 or issue 2, and I'll be like, no, I'm good. Like the recent Hawkman series. I liked the first couple issues. I think I got to issue 5. I'm like, this is awful. I don't need to dedicate any more time in my life to this. But at a certain point, I'll get to the point where, I got to read this entire thing. It's not healthy.
It's like, I'm bored. Let me go read that horrible Hawkman story and see if it's actually any good.
Right.
Exactly. And again, because, we're podcasters who talk comics and talk other things. Like for me in this show and my reading habits are dependent on what I want to cover on this show.
Sure.
Like, I am so far behind in, like, the only title in DC that I've ever kept up with currently since Rebirth happened was Batman Beyond. I have not read whatever I've done on this podcast is what I'm so far, like, I still want to read the 2014 Iron Man series that Marvel had before they whatever. It's like I'm so far behind on the big 2 stuff. Like,
was that the Invincible Iron Man series? Is that what that was? Yeah, that was pretty good, actually. I think I've got 1 or 2 hardcovers of that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How large or small, I assume it's large, is your physical comic book collection?
Oh, God. Okay, well, if we're talking trade paperbacks, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 packed bookshelves, to the point where some titles are facing forward, like in front of the ones that are slotted.
Right.
And then, and all those bookshelves are roughly 7 feet tall, or, well, one of them's actually like 8 feet tall. And then I have, my closet is open right now, and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 full long boxes, and then 5 full short boxes on the top shelf. And that's after culling probably 60% of my collection 15 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't have the room for all of that. I'm so glad I am digital.
Yeah, that's what my girlfriend's saying. She's like, you got a lot of stuff. we're getting ready to do the move thing. I mean, not right away, but we're talking about it. She's like, you got a lot of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's my stuff.
What's the one? Okay, heaven. I started this question over on our Transformers Origins thing, where it's like, what is the one comic you could never live without ever? So basically, everybody is safe. You're safe. Your girlfriend's safe. The kids are safe, but the house is on fire. What would you go in to save?
Oh, shit. Oh, my God. I don't know. Like, it has to be one series? Or one issue? Or what are we talking about here? It
doesn't matter. What's the one comic you could never live without ever? What's the one... If you could only have... Like, if you're on a desert island and you only get one comic book, what are you reading the rest of your life as you are on the desert island?
Holy shit. I'm going to say volumes 1 through 4 of Jack Kirby's Fourth World Omnibus.
Awesome.
So that collects stuff from his work in Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, Mr. Miracle, New Gods, Forever People. I feel like I'm missing one. And it's floated away from my head. But yeah, those are integral to me.
What was the most money you spent on a comic or comic item?
Like I paid like $50 for, it's a big hardcover of Madman comics. You know Madman, Mike Allred series.
Yep.
Huh. That might be it for the comic. I think I spent like $75-$80 on a statue of Savage Dragon.
Oh, very cool.
So that's a comic book paraphernalia item. But yeah, I it's not major money.
Yeah.
But the major money comes when it adds up all the stuff, like all the comics that I buy together.
Oh, true. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, like,
it's not that I'm not spending money on comics. I spend a lot of money on comics. I just don't buy really expensive single comics or books or whatever.
Well, I mean, in the previous decade, before the world went to hell, we could actually go to conventions and we could buy a Hulk statue and have it signed by whom, you know what I mean? Like,
sure,
that's the kind of comic item thing. But yeah. Was there ever a moment where you were done with comics? Like, you didn't want anything to do with them. You were done with them. You're like, it ain't for me anymore.
Okay. So actually, first of all, I kind of have to go back and re-mention the last thing. Cause I do have a small collection of, original comic book art.
Oh, very cool.
And I think I've spent on a single page, like $200. Oh, which is awesome. Again, still not a huge amount of money in that realm, but I forgot about a small collection of original art. But sorry, in this question, again, repeat it to me.
Was there ever a moment when you were done with comics completely? Like you were like, I'm out. I can't stand it anymore. I need to go on with my life.
No. The short answer is no. There is a period of time where I stopped reading like 8-9 different series a month. Mm-hmm. But I boiled it down to the lowest I've ever gotten is, well, I guess now the only series I buy in monthly floppy reel format is Savage Dragon. But there was a period of time Marvel was doing, well, they did Onslaught and then Heroes Return. And I'm like, oh, these cool image artists are coming back and doing Marvel books. And oh my God, they're horrible. So, so I really kind of bounced from Marvel at that time, and I was already off DC for a while at that time. So there was a period where I was only reading Savage Dragon, Planetary, and Authority. And then once Authority, well, it didn't end, but once like the second volume of Authority ended or whatever, it was down to Planetary and Savage Dragon. But again, Planetary is not a monthly comic. I know it's sort of considered a monthly comic, but I'm just sort of looking it up right now. The run of Planetary was 27 issues and then 3 one-shots. But it's 27 issues, and those 27 issues came out between September of 1998 and October of 2009.
Oh, wow.
So 11 years for 27 issues. Like, I swear we waited 5 years for the final issue. Like, after 26, it was like 5 years, and then boom, here's 27. So that you can't really consider a monthly comic. So at that point, I guess you could say I was just reading one. But I've been reading. Yeah, there's never been a time where I haven't read monthly comics.
Awesome. What are you reading right now, and what do you think our listeners should check out?
See, most of my stuff right now. So most of the stuff, other than, obviously, I'll say Savage Dragon one more time. Maybe again, everybody. You never know. But I'm mostly reading reprints of old stuff. But as far as like the monthly comics I am reading and enjoying lately, Ice Cream Man. Mm-hmm. Do you know this? It's a horror anthology comic from Image.
Yeah, so many people have been telling me about it, and I actually have a team of podcasters that are going to help me review it on the show this coming December. So
cool. Yeah. I don't know. If you like horror, you'll probably like it. It feels like I don't know, like that Creepshow series on Shudder in comic book form. I dig it. Like the Black Hammer realm of comic books. Do you know about that?
I've heard about it, but I haven't looked into it.
Who the hell writes it? Jeff Lemire. It's a sort of a superhero series, but there's a bunch of different sort of mini series that all sort of coincide in the same universe. I'm digging that quite a bit. I'm also like super behind on comics. Like, I'm just starting that whole Age of X-Man thing, which I find kind of interesting, but I'm not quite fully into it yet. The Immortal Hulk is great. It's existential horror and cosmic horror, and it's done in the confines of, a very simple comic book. And I think it's, even though it has gotten a lot of kudos, I think it's still slept on quite a bit. Man, other than that, I'm trying to think of some more sort of independent comics. Vampirella's having a great run now. I mentioned her earlier. She goes through fits and starts of being great, and the Vampirella comics right now are great. Vengeance of Vampirella was picked back up. That was a series that was abandoned in the 90s, and the writer, I think it's Tom Snagowski, if I'm not mistaken, has picked up where he left off. So that's very cool. Yeah, I think that's sort of awesome. All off the top of my head.
That's one thing about you and Mike. Oh boy. Michael David Sims, folks. I swear that guy can pull a comic book out of his brain immediately without having to even look at anything.
He's better than I am at it, for sure.
You're an encyclopedia. He's an Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, like he'll say it and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know that," but I wouldn't have been able to pull that out of the top of my head.
No. All right. Heroes, heroines, anti-heroes and heroines, or villains. What archetypes are your go-to reads? So what kind of character archetypes are you drawn to?
A short answer is all of them. I mean, I like any good story, but I am partial to villains. I think Doctor Doom is quite possibly the greatest comic book character in the Marvel Universe. I love that he's got this hubris and that he's dead set on proving to one single person, even though he's basically a king and quite possibly one of the most powerful people in the Marvel Universe, with his mastery of machines and magic, he still feels the need to prove himself to Reed Richards, to the point where in a recent comic in that Dan Slott run, Galactus attacked Latveria, and like Dr. Doom projected a hologram image of it and was like, "Hey, Fantastic Four, fuck you. I'm going to beat Galactus on my own." You know, like ridiculous. But I love that. I love that in him as a character. And the fact that when they finally pulled that mask off that he'd been wearing because he was so disfigured, he just has a little scar on his cheek. Like that says so much about that character.
Oh yeah.
I love it. So and you know, Magneto, I love villains with meat. And I think that in any, you know, in like Breaking Bad, you know, in any platform, any format of storytelling, I think if you can tell a really good story about a villain, it's better than a really good story about a hero, because we've seen so many hero stories.
Right.
So yeah, I love heroes. I love villains. I love anti-hero. I mean, you know, I'm a Punisher fan, but, and I guess you can call Batman an anti-hero in some aspects as well. But for me, a villain. The villain's always more interesting.
Absolutely. Do you, I at this point, I'm pretty sure this answer is no, but I have to ask it, and maybe I should rearrange these questions. Do you have my parents got rid of my comics story?
No.
Didn't think so.
No, I would never have. You would be hearing a story where I never talk to my parents again.
Oh boy. Yeah, that question, and I've said this lately every episode, that question actually comes from another part of our Transformer. Basically, we have 20-something, 30-something questions for Transformers fans, and it's like, do you have my parents got rid of my toys story kind of thing?
Right.
Because when I was 6, my dad told me I was too old to play with toys, and he sold all my He-Man figures.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, they got rid of all my toys. I'll tell you that. Like I believe my GI Joes and my you know, like the big the big rubber WWF guys that had the ring and all that. Like I had those guys. I had GI Joes, and that was the extent of my action figures. Really, I had some others. You know, Cops. Do you remember Cops?
Cops, Central Organization of Police Specialists. Fighting crime in a future time. Protecting Empire City from Big Boss and his gang of crooks.
Yeah, okay. All right. I feel like a lot of people don't remember Cops. I didn't really like the show so much, but the action figures were bigger. So like I could use one of those guys as Kingpin or Thanos, you know what I mean? You know, so I like that. But yeah, so I think they gave them to Goodwill.
Wow.
But that didn't bother me. But when I moved, I had, you know, all my comics with me. There was no way those were gone.
What is one item from a comic book you'd love to have in the real world? The example here would be obviously Green Lantern's ring, but anything. Batman's Batarang, Superman's just what is one item within a comic book that you would want to pull out and have for yourself?
Huh. Is it a cheat to say the Infinity Gauntlet?
Only as long as I'm in the half that isn't snapped away.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna snap people away, but I'll definitely remake the world in my liking. I think I really feel like I probably am. Like, I'm a good man, you know. Like, and I feel like only people who aren't good men would say it, but I am. You know, like, I am a good person. Mm-hmm. However, I feel like given unlimited power, I would totally be corrupted and totally be okay with it. But yeah, probably the Infinity Gauntlet, because that's the biggest cheat. The first thing that popped into my head was Cosmic Cube, but there's something about the Cosmic Cube that, you know, someone always gets the upper hand on. So,
yeah. If you could create any comic storyline, what would you want to create, and what characters would you want to create it with? Basically, this is if Marvel, DC, whomever gave you the keys to their kingdom and said you can do anything you want, what would you do?
Wow. I'm going to think about this one for a second. This is tough. Okay, it's not so tough. You're peering inside my mind a little bit. This is how my brain works. This is tough. No, it's not tough. Never mind. I could pick different artists, but I think I would love to do a run on. Oh, now I'm changing my mind. No, I'm going to give both of these. Okay, so, go ahead. Because this is where my head's at, I would love to do a Legion of Monsters story at Marvel with Ron Garney on art. Oh, wow. That would be cool. I love that man's art. I think he's one of the great underrated superhero artists, and I think he would be great on a monster book. And then mirroring that, I would like to do my own take on the Creature Commandos over at DC with Doug Mahnke. Interesting. Who is one of my favorite comic book artists as well. And I feel like he is perfectly suited for horror. And I don't know if he's gotten... Yeah, well, I guess he did The Mask, didn't he? He did The Mask, so that's sort of horror a little bit. But yeah, I'd like to see him with more monsters, because I think he's very, very well suited for it. Very cool, very cool. All right, final question. What is the one piece of advice you would give the comics fandom? Be okay with not liking things. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I am fine. Like, again, we talked about it earlier. You know, like... The thing about comics is that comics can be very deceptive, because we as people, there's that whole don't judge a book by its cover. Mm-hmm. And back in the day, you know, before I started reading comic books, and also while I was reading comic books, the cover of the comic book would depict something that happened in the comic book. Mm-hmm. And it was very fun. You know, it was like, oh God, will Superman get out of this one? You know, like that kind of stuff. That's very fun. So it sets up an expectation. Mm-hmm. Now, the opposite side of that is where we are, which I guess began sometime in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, is when every cover just started to be a like a pinup. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter. Yeah. And I'm thinking like specifically like Ultimate Spider-Man. Right. Yeah. Those covers don't really matter. No. So and don't think I'm shitting on Ultimate Spider-Man, but also think about it. If you're a kid and you read a comic book and you're like, wow, I really liked it, and you want to come back to that as an adult, mm-hmm. you have no idea whatsoever what comic book you read, because all those covers look the same. You know, it's funny. When I started, like when I was a little, like 7, 8, 9 years, it was somewhere between 87 and 91, I want to say. So by the time I was 7 to 11 years old, my mom was at some thrift store, junk store, whatever. They had, and I
do not think it was Dark Knight Returns. I think it was something else. But it was like the darkest Batman story I had ever seen in my entire life. I don't remember what the hell this thing was, but it was like at least 5.5 inches. Like this thing was like huge. It was like an omnibus essentially.
Huh.
Maybe it was just a collection of various Batman stories. I don't remember what the hell it was, but that was like one of my first Batman books as a kid, and I'm like, oh my God, Adam West would roll over in his grave if he saw that. And again,
Right.
this is the late 80s, this is the early 90s. 66 was in reruns. They were doing the superpower team show thing. This was before Batman the Animated Series. This is right before or right after Bat 89. And I'm
Right.
like, oh my God, what the... And I've never been able to figure out what the hell it is. I know it's not Dark Knight Returns. I know it is not that.
Is it The Cult?
I'd have to look it up and check it out. I don't know.
Drawn by Bernie Wrightson. That was very dark around that time. But yeah, like so like I say that because I pick up a comic book and it looks like a normal American superhero comic book on the cover, and I open it up and it's got like a manga artist drawing it, and that upsets me. But I don't go online and shit on the artist.
Oh, no.
Right? I'm fully aware that artist is talented. That artist wouldn't have a job drawing comic books if they weren't talented. It's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to say to comic fandom. The words, 4 words, not my cup of, it's 5 words, by the way. Not my cup of tea. Use those words instead of being an asshole online. Because fandom, not comic fandom on its own,
just fandom in general,
period, is so toxic. Mm-hmm. And, you still see people saying, oh, this comic book written by this guy at so-and-so is just the worst thing I've ever read. Don't be an asshole. Really. It's okay to say, hey, I read Captain America number 11 and I didn't like it. Not a fan. But it's not okay to say, boy, the fucking writer of Captain America 11 at blah, 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 whatever the name really is a hack. That's just being an asshole.
Yeah.
So don't be an asshole.
And it's funny because I know that you know this, and I assume you know that he did this, but our fellow friend, Thomas DJ, he did a thing called the Modern Fandom Manifesto, and he wrote up his rules.
Right.
And one of his rules is, I will celebrate what I love and accept the loves of my fellow fans. That's number 3 on his list. Here's my thing. I get it. A number of people love Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or both.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you on this.
I've said it 1,000 times. I read Fellowship of the Ring. I read the first 3 chapters when I was 14 years old in 1994. The only thing I ever got out of that book, his 111st birthday? What the hell does that mean? Oh, it means he's 111. And I get it. That's what, Tolkien was writing in a specific style. I understand that. But it was never for me. 21 years ago, I made a choice in a Mississippi bookstore between a wizard or a former lingerie buyer turned bounty hunter when it came to reading books. And I have never looked back going to figure out why I should like Harry Potter. I don't dislike it.
Right.
It's just, like you said, not my cup of tea. I mean, really, honestly, former lingerie buyer turned bounty hunter, you're going to pick that over a wizard any day.
Yeah, you got to tell me what this is. It's not ringing a bell.
It's author by the name of Janet Ivanovich. It's the Stephanie Plum series. There was
okay.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely love it.
Right. Okay.
I need to get
my ex-wife read that for a little while.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. She's my ex-wife. You don't have to apologize for it anymore. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100% on Lord of the Rings. One of my very best friends, Daryl, sometimes co-host of my podcast. It's been a while. He lives hours away at this point. But when people are allowed to travel again, we'll we'll have him on the show because I'll go visit him for the weekend. But he's a massive fan of those movies and the books, I think. Mainly the movies. You know, he's a big cinema fan, and those movies are an accomplishment, but
they are.
He's the only person I ever bug about that because because I just like giving him the gears. He's my best friend, right?
Exactly.
So I'm like, he'll mention Lord of the Rings. I'll be like, oh God, please. I'll be like, oh Frodo, I've never been this far from the Shire before. Oh, and just like, but I will never make fun of him for liking it because, I mean, you like what you like, right?
Absolutely. Is there anything you would like to promote or pimp out before I go through the closing of the show?
My podcast, Dread Media, has been running for, if it's okay that I pull back the curtain on this, we're recording on the night of Sunday, February 28th, and tomorrow episode 705 will come out, and that'll be the 705th running week of Dread Media. So go to dreadmedia.com. You can find me on all the podcast outlets and whatnot. I got a book. If you like giant monsters and the troubles in Ireland, then this is probably the right book for you. Mother of Abominations by Desmond Reddick. You can get it on Amazon.
Very cool.
And and I have an Amazon writer page. I have a bunch of short stories published in various anthologies. So you can look at that. And just thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, just send me all those and I'll obviously put them all in the post. Thank you for joining us here inside the Pull Bag. If you'd like to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show, there are several ways to do so. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on this and all of our other episode posts from this show and all the other shows we've been doing for the last 11, almost 12 years now. You can send us email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Here are all the ways you can listen to us nowadays: Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, the home where our files exist, Spreaker. Leave the show's feedback in iTunes. Please do this. Follow us on Twitter at Geekcast Radio is the network. Twitter at The Pullbag is the show. I am at TFG and Mike. You're on Twitter, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. At Dread Media.
Become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Geekcast Radio Network. And also you can check out The Pullbag as well. Is Dread Media on Facebook, I assume? Or no?
I've got a Dread Media group on Facebook, but okay. I'm on Facebook and I accept friends.
Yes.
I'm lonely.
You're Canadian.
Yeah. It's cold. Be my friend. No, whatever. Yeah, if you're cool, friend me if you want.
I'll give you a nickelback if you friend me.
How dare you? How dare you? How dare you sour this entire conversation?
Oh, that's funny. For now, I am TFG and Mike with
Tired of living like a blind man. Sick aside of a sense of feeling. This is how you remind me.
Oh, me. Sorry, Desmond Reddick.
Fuck. As always, make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared for that.
There are a couple of beats in this podcast where I'm like, I can put a little guitar riff right there.
Never again.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at thepullbag and at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.
Jarvis,
Hey.
All wrapped up here, sir. Will there be anything else?
You know what to do.